Welcome back to our channel, True Crime Enthusiasts. I'm John Garfield.
Today we're diving deep into a rarely discussed angle, the prison deaths of those who should have faced the death penalty, but didn't. In America's prisons, there's a brutal culture of hatred toward child offenders. Stats show male offenders make up about 15% of the prison population, but account for nearly 30% of inmate homicides since 2007. Prison gangs often target them, turning facilities into a living hell where attacks and killings are common. One study identified 20 cases of inmates murdering child abusers, driven by complex motives like disgust and vigilante justice. In California alone, offenders are killed at a higher rate than others. This unspoken code raises questions about prison dynamics and whether it's protection or payback. The main figure of this video is Leslie Patrick Bailey, a key player in Britain's most infamous Dirty Dozen pedophile ring. For sensitivity reasons, we will refer to crimes involving children using the term PD in this video.
On October 7, 1993, just months after his third life sentence, the 40-year-old was found strangled in his cell at Whitemoor Prison during free association time. Autopsy revealed homicide, marks of the struggle, a ligature around his neck. Two inmates, Michael Caine and John Brooks, were later convicted, but the prison's wall of silence shrouded details. The shock? Bailey was in a segregated wing for offenders under Rule 43, meant to shield them from attacks. How did killers get to him? Bailey, nicknamed Cat Weasel for his wild appearance, was part of Sidney Cook's gang preying on boys in 1980s London. He drove vans for abductions, participated in druggings, gang assaults, and disposals in rural spots. Confirmed in at least 3 murders, 7-year-old Mark Tildesley, 6-year-old Barry Lewis, and 14-year-old Jason Swift. His confessions cracked the case, but estimates suggest up to 25 victims. Was Bailey's death justice served by inmates or just more violence? Does prison vigilantism fill gaps in the system? What if more secrets died with him? Don't forget to like and share this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives. Now let's get into the case. Now that we've opened with Bailey's abrupt prison death, let's backtrack to the crimes that sealed his fate. It's crucial because these acts reveal the gang's brutal methods, drawn from police confessions and court records. The mid-1980s marked the height of the horrors tied to the Dirty Dozen, a loose network of about 12 men who formed one of Britain's most notorious PD rings. Led by Sidney Cook, a fairground worker known as Hissing Sid for his raspy voice and predatory habits, the group operated out of East London's rundown estates like Hackney's Kingsmead. Cook lured boys at fairs with games and sweets, using his job to spot vulnerable targets. Leslie Patrick Bailey served as the driver, ferrying victims and accomplices in vans, often holding down boys during assaults. Lenny Smith acted as an organizer, turning some abductions into a twisted profit scheme by renting out victims to other men in the ring. Robert Oliver and Stephen Barrow were core participants, joining in the group assault and disposals. Other members, less named but equally involved, included figures like Bill Malkin and Richard Kibble, who provided flats or helped cover tracks. The ring's scale stretched across London, with crimes spilling into rural Essex for body dumps. Their influence was chilling. Suspected in up to 20 child murders, they shattered communities, exposed gaps in child protection, and forced police to rethink how PD networks hid in plain sight. Families lived in fear, and the gang's brazen operations in poor, overlooked areas amplified the terror, leaving a scar on UK society that prompted major investigations like Operation Orchid. On June 1, 1984, the sequence began with Mark Anthony Tildesley. Bailey drove the van from Hackney to the Wokingham Fairground, where Cook spotted the 7-year-old boy alone. They offered him sweets, pulled him into the vehicle, and sped off. Back at a caravan, they poured drugged milk down his throat, stripped him, and took turns in the assault, 4 or 5 men at once. Bailey pressed on the boy's throat as the drugs kicked in harder. The child gasped. Then he went still from strangulation. They wrapped the body and hid it somewhere in the woods, never recovered. What if that fairground stop had been just a minute later? Would anyone have noticed the van pulling away? Then on September 15, 1985, came Barry George Lewis. The 6-year-old wandered the Walworth streets when the group snatched him up. They drove him to a flat, forced muscle relaxants into him, and the assault unfolded, hands everywhere, the boy muffled under blankets. They suffocated him with a sheet pressed over his face until his struggle stopped. Bailey loaded the body back into the van, drove out to rural Essex, and paused at a petrol station, propping the corpse up like a sick child to avoid suspicion. He dug a shallow grave near Waltham Abbey and dumped it there. Imagine the clerk at that station. Did he sense something off about the quiet, ill boy in the passenger seat? Around November 1985, Jason Cole and Peter Swift fell into their trap. The 14-year-old working as a rent boy got lured to the Kingsmead flat in Hackney with promises of cash. Once inside, they slipped diazepam into his drink, pinned him down, and the group assault started, bodies piling on, the air thick with grunts. They suffocated him, perhaps with a pillow or hands over his mouth, until life faded. The body got tossed 60 miles away in a shallow pit at Chipping Ongar, left for animals and weather to claim. How did a street-smart teen like Jason end up in that room? Did he fight back harder than the others, or did the drugs hit too fast? The pattern held across their crimes: muscle relaxants like diazepam to weaken the boys, group assaults by 4 or 5 members in squalid flats or caravans, then killings by strangulation or suffocation to silence them forever. Victims ranged from 6 to 14, often street kids or fairground wanderers easy to grab without notice. Bodies vanished in Essex countryside, shallow graves, ditches, woods, making recovery a nightmare. At least 3 deaths confirmed, but whispers from investigations pegged the total at up to 25, with more boys possibly drugged, assaulted, and released scarred but alive. The ring didn't just kill. They filmed some acts, traded victims like commodities, and expanded their reach through contacts in other PD circles. What secrets died with those unrecovered bodies? Could the higher estimates hold water, or were they echoes of unchecked rumors? These acts didn't happen in isolation. The Dirty Dozen's web touched politicians, celebrities, and even foreign links in some reports, though hard proof stayed thin. Cook's fairground gig gave cover. Bailey's driving kept them mobile. Smith's schemes added profit. The impact rippled. Parents locked doors tighter. Police combed missing persons files deeper. But the core remained the mechanics: spot, snatch, subdue, assault, dispose. No mercy, no pause. How many close calls went unseen in those crowded fairs or dim streets? Stick around as we shift to the setting and backgrounds next. It's where the chaos of 1980s London and these men's twisted paths come into focus, teasing out the vulnerabilities that let this nightmare unfold for years. Building off those raw crime sequences we just covered, we're shifting to the backdrop and key players, vital for grasping how poverty and chaos fueled the ring, sourced from investigation files and survivor accounts, but note the environments here highlight vulnerabilities that let this drag on for years. The 1970s rolled into the 1980s in London, a city split by wealth and neglect. Hackney stood out as a hotspot of decay, high rises crammed with families scraping by, streets littered with trash, unemployment biting hard. Kingsmead Estate loomed like a concrete trap where kids roamed free or sold themselves to survive. No eyes watched close enough. Parents worked double shifts or drowned in their own troubles. Fairgrounds popped up as brief escapes, but they masked dangers: strangers with candy, vans idling nearby. Urban mess fed the shadows, loose supervision, cops stretched thin, let sex crime networks burrow in deep. Vulnerable boys 6 to 14 slipped through cracks in these poor zones. How many warnings went unheard in those crowded blocks? Leslie Patrick Bailey entered the scene in 1953, born into Hackney's grind. By his 20s, he drifted. Long, matted hair gave him the Catweasel tag after that odd TV wizard. He bounced jobs: didn't collector, laborer, taximan, but nomad life stuck. Joined the ring in the 1970s, drawn to the fringes where rules blurred. Unlike his stonewalling partners, Bailey cracked later, spilled details in prison, maps and letters that pinned crimes. What pulled a wanderer like him into the core? Did the chaos mirror something inside? Sidney Cook anchored it all. Born in 1927, a fairground veteran who earned Hissing Sid for his wheezy talk. He led the pack, spotting boys at stalls, luring with games. The Dirty Dozen formed piecemeal from the 1970s, loose ties in Hackney pubs and estates, men like Cook linking up through shared secrets. By the early 1980s, it solidified, about 12 total, core 4 or 5 handling the worst. Lenny Smith organized, twisted abductions into cash grabs, renting victims out. Robert Oliver jumped in assaults, his bulk imposing in those dim flats. Stephen Barrell tagged along, helping dump sites. They used rundown apartments, peeling walls, stained mattresses as crime dens. The group expanded slow, Word of mouth in underground circles, fairground contacts, pulling in strays like Malcolm or Kibble for one-offs. No formal start, just men finding each other in the rot, building a web that spanned London to Essex Fields. Why did it take years to spot the pattern? These men shared scars, upbringings laced with violence, childhood assaults that twisted paths. No excuse, it fueled the cycle. Eyes on easy targets like fair kids or street boys. Bailey drove, Cook lured, Smith schemed. Broader woes amplified it. Poor estates lacked fences, social services missed signs, leaving boys exposed. Runaways hustled for coins, fairs drew crowds without checks. The ring preyed there, vans vanishing in the night. Could better oversight have snapped the chain early? The fallout rippled wide, but every crime meets its end. Stick around as we track the police hunt and courtroom fallout next. Key since it shows how one confession cracked the wall, pulled from Operation Orchid reports and trial transcripts. Just a heads up on the delays that frustrated families. With the setting laid out from the lost part, now we'll track the police hunt and courtroom fallout. Key since it shows how one confession cracked the wall, pulled from Operation Orchid reports and trial transcripts. Just a heads up on the delays that frustrated families. The year 1985 brought the first cracks. Jason Swift's body turned up in a shallow grave at Chipping Ongar, then Barry Lewis's near Waltham Abbey the next year. Metropolitan Police launched Operation Orchid, a squad digging into London's missing boys. They sifted reports of vanished kids from Hackney streets and fairgrounds, piecing together survivor tales, boys who escaped the flats, mumbling about drugs and hands in the dark. Physical traces piled up, diazepam in the systems, bruises matching group assaults, dirt from Essex Fields on the remains. Cops canvassed estates, knocked on doors, chased whispers of vans cruising at night. How many leads fizzled before they locked onto the ring? Bailey got nabbed around 1988, tied to Jason's case first. He sat in a cell, clammed up at the start. But by 1990-1991, the walls pressed in. He started talking. Details spilled. How they grabbed Barry off Walworth pavement, the blanket over his face. For Mark Tildesley, he sketched maps of the caravan spot, wrote letters pinpointing woods where the body vanished. Those scraps led straight to arrests. Cook hauled in from his fairground stall. Oliver and Beryl rounded up from their dives. The net tightened. More flats raided, evidence bagged. What broke Bailey? The isolation or a flicker of guilt amid the stone faces? Trials kicked off in 1989 at Old Bailey. For Jason's manslaughter, Bailey drew 15 years, Cook 19, Oliver and Beryl similar stretches. Fingers pointed wild in court, each man shoved blame. He held the pillow. I just drove. No one owned the suffocation. Then June 1991 hit. Bailey's full confession nailed him life for Barry's murder. October 18, 1991, charges flew for Mark's killing. A year later, October 22, 1992, at Reading Crown Court, Bailey pleaded to manslaughter and buggery on Mark. No intent, he claimed, just the drugs gone wrong. The judge bought it partial. December 9, 1992, sealed it, 2 more life terms, stacking to 3. He shuffled out in chains, the sentences stacking like bricks. Did the pleas shave years or just drag the pain for families? Hurdles stacked high. Crown Prosecution Service balked at charging Cook or Smith for Tildesley. Bailey's words rang shaky, a confessor too eager to deal. What did that say about trust in the system? Pinning a ring on one man's spill while leaders walked parts free. Prison wall of silence, choked info, mates clammed up, codes held firm. Inquests hit dead ends, witnesses stared at floors. Operation Orchid pushed on, linking more misses, but gaps lingered. Uncharged acts, unnamed boys. Survivors testified behind screens, voices low on the stands. Cops pored over files late nights, maps spread on desks. How deep did the silence bury truths? The probe didn't flash quick. It simmered slow, bodies first, then threads to the dozen. Bailey's turn marked the pivot, his maps unearthing Barry's site, bones confirming the tale. Courtrooms echoed with disputes, benches packed with press scribbling, families sat rigid, eyes on the dock. Verdicts landed heavy, but appeals loomed. What if one more survivor had spoken sooner? The system ground on, flaws exposed, shaky witnesses, partial charges. Essex Fields got dug again, but Mark stayed lost. Trials wrapped, but echoes carried, debates on proof, on deals cut in cells. The verdicts landed heavy, but this case didn't end in court. Following that trial grind we discussed, let's move to prison days, the sudden end, ripples, and legacy. Important because it ties justice's limits to broader reforms, gathered from prison logs, inquest findings, and news archives. December 1992 marked the drop of the final hammer. Bailey got slammed with 3 life sentences, one for Barry Lewis's murder in 1991, 2 more for Mark Telditzley in 1992. He shuffled into Britain's high-security prisons, places built for the worst, where walls closed in tight. Under Rule 43, later renamed Rule 45, he landed in a vulnerable prisoner unit, a segregated wing for sex offenders dodging beatings from general population. Guards kept watch, but association time let them mingle in the block. Whitemoor Prison in Cambridgeshire took him next, a Category A fortress for dangerous types, fresh built in 1991 with cameras and patrols. Still, threats trickled in. Notes slipped under doors, stairs in the yard, stemming from his crimes against kids. In that echoey unit, though, hate simmered low. Most inmates shared similar stains. October 7, 1993, flipped it all. Bailey, 40 now, hit association time in Whitemoor's Rule 43 wing, a slot where guys roamed cells, chatted without direct eyes on them, though cameras rolled. Michael Caine, doing life for a 1987 bar stabbing, and John Brooks, in for manslaughter, closed in on his cell that afternoon. They looped a ligature, maybe shoelaces or scavenged cord, around his neck from behind. The attack hit fast. A few minutes of struggle, Bailey's hands clawing air, then slack. He crumpled to the floor, cord still knotted, bruises blooming where fingers gripped. Guards found him prone, first pegging it as suicide. Bailey's guilt-ridden spills hinted at depression. But pathologist Nat Carey's autopsy shut that down. External strangulation marks, no self-inflicted signs, resistance wounds clear. No direct witnesses, but footage caught Caine and Brooks slipping away. The block locked tight, Caine and Brooks yanked into isolation. They later claimed disgust drove them. Bailey's child killing's too vile, even for murderers. It happened 10 months post his last sentencing, whispers tying it to his police cooperation. What if a guard had rounded the corner sooner? Did prison justice mask a hit from the ring's remnants? The probe launched under Inspector Bob Wordsworth from Cambridgeshire Police. They grilled 50 Rule 43 inmates but hit the wall of silence, blank stares, shrugged shoulders, fear, or code-sealing lips. It dragged into 1994, nailing Caine and Brooks with murder charges on June 2. By 1995, Norwich Crown Court handed them life, tariffs at 25 years each. Whitemoor's shine tarnished, a top-tier jail, yet a killing slipped through in free time. It joined 3 other similar inmate hits in England and Wales from 1988-1993, sparking calls for tighter VPU oversight, shorter association slots. The Home Office scrambled reviews. Years on, Cariff shrunk. Caine's to 15 in 2010, out of paroled. Brooks's to 17 in 2008, similar grounds of progress. Outrage boiled. Did lighter time reward vigilantes? Broader debates flared on prison justice versus rights. Some cheered Bailey's end as karma, others warned it bred chaos, eroding protections for all. NSPCC pushed for full pedophile segregation. Echoes hit kook, jaw broken in one attack, near fatal flash beating in 2023 at 96. What does it say when killers police killers? The fallout rippled wide. Bailey's case and death jolted UK headlines. Fueling drives for kid safeguards in slums like Hackney. More eyes on streets? Fairgrounds. Operation Orchid ballooned off his tips, cracking 20 to 25 linked vanishings from the Dirty Dozen era. The net exposed copycats. Cook, 99 in 2026, rots in life without parole, dodging attacks. Oliver and Barrow walked free eventually. New names, leashes tight. Society stirred, death penalty chats revived, abolished in 1965, plus gripes on soft manslaughter bids like those 15 to 19-year stints. Sarah's Law campaign surged, outing sex offenders. Victims' kin bore scars. Teldisley's died without Mark's bones, John in 2006, Lavinia 2014. Lewis and Swift families built support funds. The saga shaped prison policy, victim rights talks. Did Bailey's end close the book or just bury more truths? Echoing the prison violence we just explored, Bailey's death fits a grim pattern. In the UK, Lost Prophet singer Ian Watkins, jailed for child crimes, got killed in Wakefield Prison in 2025, slashed in an attack. Richard Huckle, one of Britain's worst pedophiles, met his end stabbed in 2019 at Full Sutton. In the U.S., Jeffrey Dahmer fell to a beating in 1994, targeted for his crimes against teens. Inmates like Robert Maudsley, dubbed Hannibal, killed sex offenders inside, driven by hate. These hits happen fast, ligatures, shanks, fists, and blind spots. From one angle, they seem like rough justice, payback for horrors against kids. But not quite. Real justice comes from courts, verdicts society stamps, trials that honor victims, not cell block vengeance that breeds more mess. What if these killings bury truths like unspilled confessions? Families like the Tildesley's waited for answers, not inmate codes. The case teaches hard lessons. London's poor estates hid rings like the Dirty Dozen too long. Kids roamed, oversight failed. Better safeguards now. Eyes on fairs, streets, probes into networks. Prisons tightened, but walls of silence linger. Operation Orchid showed confessions crack cases, yet gaps in charges let some walk. Vigilance saves lives. Silence shields mobsters.
Here. If it hit home or sparked thoughts, like and share it wide. Drop your take in comments, prison justice or system fix. Subscribe for more dives. Thanks. See you next time.